Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining. Figured I'd switch it up today. Instead of asking you where you're from yet again, I want to know if you could be any mythical creature, what it would be. And if you want to say why, you can. But for me, I would be the Niffler from the Harry Potter universe, the little platypus thing that steals all the treasure. That's what I would be. Unicorn, love it. Yoda, nice. It'd be like, live several hundred years. That'd be fun. Short and green. Minotaurs, like those, yeah. Ooh, leprechaun, yeah. All right, we got a couple more minutes and we'll get started today. The Will Ferrell version of Elf. Nice. I think it'd be kind of hard to walk around with syrup everywhere you go, though. But hey, maybe if you just had a little one, it'd be all right. They do make mini syrup bottles, Daniel. That's true, they do. Buy them at the gas station, like those little minis you can pick up there too. You're all right. All right. Well, thanks for everybody who played my little game. I appreciate it. Um, Today we're getting into Clash. Gonna kind of run through some methodologies and how to actually like navigate the Clash test itself. Not everybody's gonna have access to make their own, but I want to at least be able to show you guys how you guys can quickly see and get to the clashes that you care about. And then we'll actually walk through making a test, and we'll kind of talk around different clash tests that you can make along the way. But again, thank you everybody for taking the time out of your day to day to be here. I really, really, really do appreciate it. Um, Housekeeping, as always, it's recorded. We'll send you the link. Please use the chat to engage with others in here. Ask questions through the Q&A. Future webinars and events are going to be at Revizto on LinkedIn. And again, you can always just connect with me as well on LinkedIn. There we go. There's my beautiful face yet again, and a little bit about me as well. So we'll jump right into this whole Clash thing and kind of what we got going on there. This one's going to be need to do this a little bit of setup here just to kind of go back and kind of talk through it. So Clash inside of Revizto is going to be completely search set based. Okay, just from the fundamental level, even if you want to do file to file, you're going to have to create a search set for that file and the other file, and then pit those two together to make the test. And the only reason why we kind of went that way is because selection sets are static, search sets are dynamic. So we want to make sure we're pulling all of the information into the Clash test that we possibly can so that it's as accurate as possible. That said, we'll jump into Clash automation. And you'll see when you open it up, you'll see a list of all of the different tests that you have available on your job, ones you have access to, or all of them if you are running your own Clash tests like that. You know, across here, you'll see lots of different columns here. This is just different information as far as what is going on inside of that test itself. Any stamps that have been applied, default assignees, priorities, the dates that it was created, you know, all of that information that you could need is going to be there. The first two columns here are going to be whether it needs, you know, if it's ran or if it needs to be updated. That's what those two columns are. And if these don't make sense, you can drag them around and pull them and put them where you want them to be. This just you only do this for yourself, so you don't have to worry about messing somebody else's screen up. But yeah, so if you cared about, you know, how many clash groups there are, and then, you know, maybe who it's going to be assigned to, right? You could move that over, so that way you'd always see that information here instead of having to drag this screen out across and lose some of that real estate. So there is that. We have a couple different other icons across the top I can show you. This is how you're going to create a new clash test, is by clicking this icon. You can, you know, if you have any tests checked out, you can relinquish them there. This is how you're going to run clash detection. This is how we sync them to the issue tracker. And then you can just run and sync at the same time as well. There are some other options here. We can kind of talk through there, but there is a version history of the test as well. So if you needed to go back and look at an old test, you could look at the version history, and even any of the tests, and you guys have access, you can look at any archive tests that have ran on the project as well. As far as anything else up here, something else to note is there's this little icon here that sometimes gets hidden and lost, but there are other columns that you can add. You can even take some of these off, you know, out of your list if for whatever reason that you don't care about them. You can remove them from this list to make this even more streamlined for the information that you care about. But as far as getting into a test and actually looking at it, I have this test right here created. And this is just construction steel versus ductwork in this particular case. And again, all I really did here was just set the construction steel search set against the duct model search set to create this test. I'll expand this out just a little bit. I normally don't have it this far out when I'm going through this, but in order to actually edit the test, you're going to have to check it out. So edit it means change any of the settings over here, as well as change the statuses here. So if I check this out, I'm able to interact with these buttons over here and these over here. Across the top, there's a lot of different ways to filter. And this is kind of where we start to leverage the smarts that are built into Revizto as far as being able to take these results and actually see them at the time you want to see them. So I like to do this. I like to go to the level that I'm working on. So say I'm on level 4. Now all of my results are filtered to level 4. From there, if I decide I want to look at all of these level 4 clashes at once, I can do that. Or I can start to look at them individually. And what you'll notice is that I am using the latest version of Revizto. So this is 5.13.3. And there are some new settings inside of the clash test setup itself that I'll run through. But that's why you're seeing these views be locked to a top-down view, as opposed to it being some, you know, weird section or, you know, a weird angle. But I have set that up for this test. So again, you know, you can fly through them. You know, you look at this, you say, okay, yeah, this is an issue. We need to fix it. Move it from reviewed, not reviewed, to reviewed. Or you can move it to on hold. And on hold is a new status also in 5.13. And this is kind of like a stopgap between nobody's looked at it to it needs to be sent to the issue tracker. So, you know, potentially if you had another team member you wanted to have look at this, you could send them here and say, look at all the on hold clash groups, and then we can weigh in on those together. But let's say this one is an issue, needs to go to the issue tracker. We want it to have a track there. Just move that to reviewed. Then we can look at the next one, kind of just run through the whole thing, right? So this is going to be your sort of your workflow to look through the clashes and actually identify what is going to be a clash and what isn't going to be a clash. A couple other things to note here. So let's say, you know, I go back to this clash here and I want to see everything that's clashing with this element here. So I can select that and I can come up to by selection up here, and then I can turn that on and it's going to give me all the clashes that are all of the clashes that are touching that object that I have selected. Sorry, that's a lot of words, but a lot of times, when you're reviewing a clash test, you might have something that, is a really long piece and it doesn't really make sense the way that things were grouped. So you want to have and be able to pull all of those together into one group. This is the way that you can do that. And also you can identify which clash group this is part of as well. If you're doing like a holistic overview of, kind of just going through all of the clashes at once, like here. So now I have this selected, and if I turn this back on again, I can activate that, and it's going to take me to this clash group. So a lot of times when I was flying through here, I wasn't able to determine, which clash group this one was as I was doing a big overview. So this really helped me to find out exactly which clash group this was part of. And then the other thing is a lot of times we have teams where multiple people are modeling, and maybe they're responsible for a specific search set or work set inside of that model. So I think feeder conduit, I think branch conduit, lighting conduit, those types of things. So if those search sets are created inside of the project, you have the ability to come to this search set here, and then we can do, probably not going to have a search set set up for this test. So let me go. That's going to give me one. Sorry, I'm trying to find a better test to display this. I got rid of my clash groups, didn't I? Let's do this here. I'm back. Let me just create a search set quickly here. Right, so then I go back to this test here that I'm working on. If I go to a search set and I go round duct, I can filter this out by that particular search set, right? So again, it doesn't have to be round duct. It could be, supply air, return air, it could be hot, cold water, pressurized lines, anything like that. You're able to really have the person who's going to be fixing these issues or looking and addressing these issues filter down their issues, the clash groups themselves, to what they need to see. And that said, you do have the ability to also have some appearance settings as well. So this can be very helpful as you're kind of, really digging down into very specific items, is being able to change the highlighted unselected clashes. So you can have them no highlight, you can have them dim, gray, or bright. So if I turn this on, any other clashes in the area, get rid of these because I don't need them now. They'll show up, as dimmed. So if I were to click on this one now, you'll see these other clashes as well. So if these were, in close relationship, you'd be able to see that, hey, there's another group here that this might affect. So I do like to have, this either turned on dimmed or bright. That way I can really see that. The other thing is sometimes, this appearance doesn't work with it's kind of sometimes on very dense projects, it's hard to make out what's around you. So you have the ability to come up here and apply any appearance profile that's on the job. So whether that's like the coordination view, so that way you could kind of see what is around you as well. You're already going to be used to looking at the model this way. So when it becomes transparent, it's a little bit easier to make out what's around you. And then there's a lot of different, again, just different ways to see it so that it makes sense for you at the end of the day. And then even more filters. I mean, we can get pretty crazy with filters. If you've used our software for any length of time, you know that we can get pretty granular. So we can even do that really here. We can do that here as well. Even by checking by statuses or anything along those lines. Once the issues get sent to the issue tracker, you're able to see kind of what's in progress, what's solved, what's been automatically closed because it's been cleared, or something that was manually closed in the issue tracker. You're even able to filter by those as well. All right, so I'm going to kind of walk through how I set up this test right here. And I'm just going to do that over here. This is, line by line how it would be set up as you go through the test itself. But again, right here, this first screen is you pick the search set or search sets that you want to clash. So I could select multiple things here if I wanted to, and have that run against multiple things on this side over here as well. And then just name it. That's pretty straightforward. The next screen you'll see is going to be ignore rules. So you have the ability to set up, take out the false positives from your test straight from the beginning. So for example, I took out flex dust with steel because obviously I don't think that's going to be an issue. It may be, but in this particular case, I didn't think it would be. So I removed those from the clash results altogether. We have the ability to do that from either side of the test, so A or B, or you could do it from just the A side. In this case, it's the steel, or the B side, which is the ductwork. And then there's even more, you can get even more specific on how you want to ignore things here as well. And then we could do ignore things that are in the same model, or you could just ignore the duplicates straight out of the gate there. So a lot of different options of ways to really, take out all that extra noise out of your clash test right up here in the front. From there, I have this one set up to be a clearance because I wanted to be able to take into account fireproofing for the steel. And in order to do that, I selected clearance horizontal and vertical, which allows me to give a horizontal measurement, which would be this way, and then a vertical measurement this way. So I added, I think it's 2 inches. And for some reason, we still have to convert this. I'm hoping we can get that changed, but you do have to do a conversion from feet to inches. But there's lots of different clash tests that we could have set up. We could have set up a hard clash, which is just, obviously two objects touching themselves. We do have some check boxes here. There was some argument over the last year whether or not two objects that have a 0 magnitude and they're just sharing the same base, if that was a clash or not. So now we have the ability to turn that on or off depending on your preference. And then also objects that are inside of other objects. So I always like to air cool my conduits. Inevitably, they wouldn't show up in a clash test. So I would miss those. But now I have the ability to turn this on and I'll be able to see those and they'll be treated as clashes. Clearance gives you, again, that's just a ball, all the way around would be the same measurement. We went through that already. Tolerance is how far they can go into each other before we consider that to be a clash. Again, you can set horizontal, vertical different. We also have directly above and directly below. These right here I like to use for headroom or for hallways specifically to make sure that I'm not above or not below that that hard lid that they don't want us to go under. So that's a different type of test there, and really used for like ADA stuff. And I use it to make sure my switches were so far off the ground and those types of things. These two here are brand new with 5.13. So again, you could run a clash to just find things that are inside of other objects. We're seeing a lot of people start to use this to, using the rooms as geometry. They're able to determine whether anything's in this space. So like these atriums and stuff where they don't want any systems to run, they're able to run a clash to see if anything's crossing through those zones. And then duplicates is, if for whatever reason you had a design model that was copied into your model, just to make sure that all of that extra doubled up geometry is taken care of. So there's a lot of different ways to deploy our clash test. There's a lot of different ways that it can be used. It's not just to find objects that are, touching each other or encroaching in each other's space. There's a lot of other ways that these can be deployed as well. Val, if you want to run through the first two poll questions, I forgot to ask you to do that, but if you want to go ahead and get those started, we can run through that. The first one is, how often are you guys running your own internal clashes instead of from a subcontractor side of things? Like, are you guys running your own internal clashes against your own systems, or are you guys just relying on the clash test that's being provided to you? All right, and then while that's running, I'm gonna jump into the next part of it, and this is grouping. We have grouping built into our software. For this one here, I use chain proximity, and then I'll kind of explain what that is right now. So chaining distance is this little circle. So it's going to put a 10-foot radius around each clash, and that's going to try to link as many of those together as it can in a chain. So I'm saying no more than 100 feet, but I want as many of them as I can get together within that 100 feet. We do have just a regular proximity, which is just going to be a circle, and it's going to try to push as many clashes as we can inside of that circle, to make them fit into one group. Different methodologies here for me. I really like chained when I'm doing like hanger clashes, because I want to be able to move all those wholesale. And, inevitably I was always trying to hang off the bottom of a ductwork somewhere, which we know is a big no-no. So I would run this test, and I would use a chain proximity for hangers. I would have it set to, 10 feet to make sure I'm catching all my hangers in a line, and I'd run it to like 250 feet. So that way I could just move all the hangers at once if I needed to. Or for, even for underground conduit, because it's long and it doesn't break very often. There's not a lot of turns and twists to it. So I would also use chain there for underground stuff. But there's a lot of different applications for this and where you would use it at. But for this test, I used this chained for here. The next thing I wanted to group by was going to be the level. I wanted it to be constrained to each level. I didn't want that bubble to go up a floor and maybe catch something that was on a different floor. I wanted it to be constrained to that level. And then the next one is I want to element for the category for the B side. So I wanted it to report back, what it was clashing against, and then report back what that was from the duct side of things instead of the steel side of things. So that's where you're starting to see, if I go back into here, you're starting to see this, it's a duct or it's a duct fitting. Right? So that's where you're starting to see level 4 and then duct fitting or duct here. So this is where we're going to start to rename not rename, but automatically name these groups out so that they can be logically looked through, and you'll have some context before you start even going through them, what they will be. There's a lot of other things you could do. We can do different property conditions. You can do areas, room, zone, grid intersections, levels, all that stuff. There's a lot of different things that you can add to this, and you can just keep adding as you go. And it's really going to, how this is ordered is really kind of what dictates how the groups are made. So if whatever reason, this wasn't exactly how you wanted it to be, you could, I want it to be by the element first, and then I want to do a chain proximity, and then I want to do level. It may change the groups a little bit. It's not going to change necessarily the amount of results you get, but it may change kind of how the groups look and how they're built. So as you're starting to set up your test and you're starting to get an understanding of kind of what this looks like, I would play around with this grouping and then kind of see what your results look like as you go through. Issue automation is going to be the last one, and this is where we automate the assigning of issues out. A couple of things to talk about. One is you could do a test where it's just one person doing it and you can assign it to that one person. So this would be like a duct clash. And then that's automatically going to be filled out when we push this stuff to the issue tracker. And then the other way to do it is, a more advanced way to do it is kind of to separate those out. So again, I think back to conduit, like feeder conduit, branch conduit. Feeder conduit would be like a major issue where branch conduit could potentially be a minor issue. So I would maybe separate those out when they go to the issue tracker. So that way the higher priority issues are dealt with first, and the lower priority issues are kind of just worked out through normal coordination. Or you could assign these to different people. Like going back to the feeder conduit, branch conduit, sometimes that's 2 different people doing the modeling. So you have the ability to, assign the feeder conduit to that specific person right out the gate, and then the branch conduit to a different person right out the gate. So there's some different ways to think about doing this. But again, it is available, and it really does speed up the process of getting that information to the right people at the right time. Lastly, I do want to talk about, new features that did come out. If you do have access to this panel and you're able to check out a test, you will be able to adjust the colors, which I've done. Out of the gate, it comes red, green, blue, I believe. But for me, the blue is kind of very close to the ductwork in this model. So I changed that to green, and then I changed the other colors just so that they would pop off the screen a little bit more for me. New to 5.13 is going to be this next section here. Actually, these next two sections. So the section box, we're going to say, do we want it to be constrained to the clash itself, or do we want it to be the whole level? In my experience, I want to see top down and I want to see the whole level, but I want my clash to be focused on. So I'm going to set this to, I'm going to fit my section box to the level. And then you got some setup here as far as the, where those constraints are and stuff like that. But I don't want it to focus on the level. I want it to focus on the clash. So I'm going to have the section box. I'm going to be able to see the whole floor, but I want the camera to be focused on the clash itself instead of it being the whole level and then the clash being over here somewhere and I have to navigate to that. And again, for me, I want it to be top down. Some people may like it from the bottom, left, right, top, front, left. Any of these other options you can lock in place. So every time you click on a clash group, it will always go to that same view. And then there's some other actual setup stuff for how the clashes are going to come out. So if you always want your clashes to be isolated in transparency and you want none of them to be transparent and you want to use this appearance profile right along the way, you could have that be the default for the test itself. And then applying section boxes and showing grids, those are toggles there as well. So what I would recommend from the subcontractor side of things, if your project is using 5.13, you do have the people in there using 5.13, I would probably have a conversation with them and say, hey, I know that this is a new feature. I'd really like if we could work together to set this up for us, because I think this would really help us out. And I think a lot of general contractors and people running clash will be receptive to that, because it's going to, at the end of the day, it's going to help the whole project overall for you guys to always see the clashes in the same way. So there's that all set up there. I went through filters here. Something to note, I guess, is from here, you could have the ability to directly create issues right now. So if I went to create issues, I could apply this stamp right here on the fly and then create the issue. And then it's going to sync that to the issue tracker. And then you'll see it here. What's nice about being in Clash Automation and then the issue tracker itself is that there are hyperlinks. So this ID 390, if I click on that, it's going to take me over to my issue tracker directly to this issue. So from there, if I needed to, I needed to mark up the issue or, do whatever I needed to do here, I could do that. Right. And then that's done there. And then, right, and the normal issue tracker stuff, right? You have it in 2D, you have it in 3D, map view, all that stuff. But as far as how, in bulk, if you wanted to send a bunch of things, so let's just say all of these right here need to go to the issue tracker. I can then go to this right here, the sync button. And then do I want to send only the reviewed clashes or do I want to send all of them? There's an option here. So I'm just going to do this one because those are the ones I've looked at. And again, those are just going to go straight over to the issue tracker and get sync up and then assigned out as the stamps that we have set up here dictated. Something I didn't mention is that this other part here is a hyperlink back to the issue tracker, or I'm sorry, back to Clash Automation from the issue tracker. So it does go both ways. Val, you can run that second question. I'm happy to hear you guys are running your internal stuff. That's a good look. Yeah, specs. Specs are it was newer to me when I came to Revizto. I probably could have figured it out in Navisworks, but for me, it just became pretty easy to do for just inside of Revizto itself. Once the above and below came out, I like that a lot. and it's going to continue to evolve and continue to improve. So we'll be on the lookout for some future advancements as far as clashes in general and how those are going to look, and do that. But yeah, sometimes it's good enough. Even people who aren't using it, that's totally fine too. I just more of a curiosity thing for me, just so I can, know sort of, how we're using Clash now and kind of what the thought process is. You can run the last one, Val. No, I'm still on two, Val. Let's see. Maybe I can run it. I'll try. Okay, got it. Yeah, and then the last one is just how you guys are communicating your viewpoints right now. Or I'm your sorry, I read viewpoints because it lit up on me. But how are you guys communicating your clash issues right now? And I thought yelling and screaming was going to be a clear winner on this one. Oh, complete mixed bag. That's good. Somebody changed it. Thank you. Oh, multi-option. Yeah, multi-option's another one. Okay, using Revizto, that's good. I mean, as long as they're getting communicated right and tracked, that's kind of the end goal, right? Yeah. Yeah, I think I communicated my clashes, especially the ones that had been hanging out for a long time. I think I would have picked yelling and screaming. Probably how that went down. Not super proud of it, but I think that's kind of how it went down sometimes. Right. So, okay, so Brett, I just now saw your question. So if users are not using Plus, what are the export options for running clash detection and wanting to share these users? Can they address an issue assigned to them? Yeah, so if they're not Plus users, they are not even, they probably aren't even going to have access to the project itself. Just because the licenses are compatible from one to the other. If as far as getting the information out to them, we do have reports and things of that nature that can be sent out to at least document to other people who may not be using Revizto. And then obviously screenshots and stuff like that. You can do we do have the ability to use switchback to Navisworks as well. I think we've touched on being able to do that back to an authoring software, but we do have it back to Navisworks as well. So if you're using Revizto and everybody else is using Navisworks, you can view the switchback and create viewpoints directly from there. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to open this up to more Q&A. If there's anything more specific, can anyone use the switchback if they have the model open? Yeah, anybody should be able to use the switchback functionality. And you can, and so I mean, even if you can link a blank Revit model to an active Revizto project, and it will try to switch back. So yeah, anybody can do it. And I don't think we've I'll just touch on it really quickly. So in order to set up the switchback functionality, you just go to link settings here in the Revizto 5 tab. And it's the same in Navisworks as well. And then you just link to an existing project. and then select whatever project you want it to link to. So I can link this to, I think I'm using so I'm using this model here, and I can link these together, even though they're not the same project. Where's my Q&A at? Any other questions? Things that I maybe glossed over from some people that I know in the group that may want to see something different that I may have just not touched on? Yeah, you can drop them in either place, the chat or in the Q&A section. I guess not. All right, so part 5 is going to be mobile applications. We're going to be talking iPads and smartphones. That's on October 6th, so not in 2 weeks, in 3 weeks. I will not be in town on that day, I think is kind of why we're not doing it in 2 weeks. I'll be on a flight to Philly going to NECA conference, so I'll be there. But yeah, we're going to cover different field use cases for each device and then dive into kind of how they can leverage information in different ways. For that, did questions already. Again, contact information. You guys have seen this a bunch already, but if we're not linked up on LinkedIn, let's do that. Reach out. I sometimes post different workflows and things like that I find along the way that might be helpful to you. And another shameless plug for RevUp. It's coming. It's great. I'm super excited to be there. I'll probably have a speaking engagement. So if you've enjoyed listening to me over the last couple of weeks, you might enjoy listening to what I have to say there. If not, there'll be somebody there that's probably going to pique your interest and you'll want to be there for. Thanks again, everybody, for taking the time today. I really, really, really appreciate it. And we'll see you in a couple of weeks.